How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jay. Today I have a little confession to make. I know most of you watch my channel because I'm the best looking and most intelligent finance YouTuber out there and never makes a mistake about anything. And it breaks my heart that today I'm going to shatter that image that a lot of you have of me. And you see, the reason is because I'm making one of the most common mistakes that I advise other people not to make. And to show you what that mistake is and how I've been making it without realizing it, we're gonna have to take a look at my portfolio. So let me pull in my computer here and see what we got going on. Now, first up, we're gonna look in my M1 Finance portfolio. As always, you can see what I'm holding in my M1 Finance portfolios at any time. I always have them linked down in the description of every video. So first off, let's start with my core holdings. If you've been with me on this channel for a long time, you know I am a firm believer of having the base of your portfolio, the core of your portfolio, made up of passive index funds. You can see here in my M1 Finance, that's what I do. I have my core 4 funds. They're a total stock market index fund, a total international index fund, a REIT fund, real estate, and a bond fund. And my largest holding is the total stock market ETF with about 50% of the holdings in this portfolio. Next up, let's take a look in my 401k. Now in my 401k, I'm implementing a very similar strategy, but my employer doesn't offer a REIT fund in the 401k. So you can see here, my 401k is through Fidelity. I'm holding the Fidelity S&P 500 index fund, the Fidelity Total International Index, and the Fidelity US Bond Index. So extremely similar to what I'm holding over there at M1 Finance. And right now in my 401k, the top holding is the S&P 500 fund, which is making up 60% of the total balance. And finally, let's take a look at my main investing account. Now this is my main private account. I don't think I've ever shared exactly what I hold in this account with you guys, but let's take a look at the top holdings in that account. Again, with this account, I'm trying to implement a similar strategy, my core index funds, but in this account, I also do dabble in some individual stocks. So when we look in this account, we can see, once again, the top holding is VTI, the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index. My international index is third, then we have VNQ, the REIT index in there, BND, the bond index in there, amongst some of my top individual stock holdings. And at this point, you may be asking yourself, Jay, I don't see the issue here. You're just investing in a boring bunch of index funds. Seems safe enough. Seems like you're doing a good job. What's the issue here? And to understand what the issue here is, we have to go back and understand why we choose this passive index fund way of investing for the core of our portfolio. And the main reason we do that is diversification. If I have all my money and I just buy 10 different stocks, I am way too heavily weighted in just 10 companies to determine how I grow my wealth or what my overall net worth looks like. But when I invest in something like VTI, the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index, I'm not investing in just 10 different companies. I'm holding well over 2,000 different companies as a part of that. So by doing that, we're spreading out our risk and we're getting exposure to all the stocks in the United States. So, okay, yeah, cool story. We knew all that. What's the issue here? And the issue is, let's go back to my main private stock account. So once again, I'll bring up the holdings in that account and let's take a closer look this time. So yeah, VTI is our largest holding, 34% of the account. Then VXUS, our international fund, 18%, right there, our second largest holding. Our third largest holding is Apple. Makes up 9% of this account here. Now the reason why Apple is so heavily weighted in this account is because I bought Apple about 10 years ago, and Apple is one of my best performing stocks of all time. And that's where the problem starts to come in. You see, Apple alone makes up over 9% of this account right here. And this is my largest account. This is where 95% of my net worth in the stock market is in this account right here. So now, out of curiosity's sake, let's look at the top holdings of VTI. And in VTI, the total stock market index, the number one holding, making up just about 5% of the total assets of that fund, is Apple. Now, let's go back to my 401k. The top holding was the Fidelity S&P 500 index fund. Top 10 holdings, the number one holding in the Fidelity S&P 500 index fund is Apple. And let's keep digging into my holdings. What about my 4 ETF income portfolio I'm building? Well, 25% of that portfolio is in QYLD. Let's take a look at what QYLD holds. Top 10 holdings, 11% of QYLD is Apple. So what I've done without even realizing it is possibly overexposed myself to one company, Apple. Now, I think Apple is a terrific stock. It's a terrific company. And I've mentioned before that Apple is one of my I'm gonna hold forever type of stocks. But am I really comfortable with this amount of my net worth in the stock market hinging on Apple? I have a large individual holding in Apple, and Apple is the #1 holding in the majority of my top index funds. And the answer to that is maybe not. And as much as I love Apple, I do notice that when Apple has really swingy days up or down, I really notice my overall portfolio balance going up or down significantly. So how do I fix it? What do I do so I'm not so heavily weighted in one stock? And the obvious answer is, well, sell some Apple. And I could do that, but I don't think I'm at the point yet where this is too big of an issue. I am a little more heavily concentrated in Apple than I initially realized, but I think Apple is still an extremely strong company, and I really like the future that Apple still has ahead of it. So I'm comfortable with the amount of Apple I hold individually, and yeah, I know it is the top holding of those index funds I have. So what I'm gonna do in the meantime is, instead of selling Apple, I'm going to stop reinvesting the dividends into Apple. I've had Apple set up on a drip plan where every time it pays a dividend, those dividends get reinvested into more shares of Apple, growing my overall holdings in Apple. So what I'll do for the time being is to turn off the dividend reinvestment in Apple. I'll be taking those quarterly dividends in cash, and I'll use that to spread out my exposure to other smaller stocks or some of the index funds I hold that don't have Apple, like the International Fund or the REIT Fund, or, well, probably not the bond fund in this environment. And the second thing I'll have to do is I'll have to pay really close attention to Apple. Now, I try to keep tabs on all the individual stocks I own. It's just part of being a responsible shareholder. But because Apple is also so heavily weighted in those index funds, I really have to be on the ball with Apple. If their next iPhone launch is a complete disaster, or if Tim Cook starts going crazy and destroying the company from the inside out, I've got to be on top of that, ready to get rid of my Apple shares. So over time, with the other stocks I buy and the other index funds I build up, I will lessen the exposure to Apple here. But for the time being, I'm okay with being a little heavily weighted in Apple compared to the other stocks that make up these indexes and so forth. But this just goes to show you, when you're building a portfolio, even if you're sticking to index funds and dabbling to some stocks along the side, you have to be aware of what your true holdings are. I see a lot of people that will hold VTI and VOO, the S&P 500 stock index funds, in the same portfolio. And you have to know, VTI holds everything in VOO, so you're really doubling up on those S&P 500 stocks when you hold both of those. So if you've ever made that mistake, give this video a like down below. I really appreciate it. In the meantime, check out these videos right over here. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you enjoy those, and I hope to see you in the next one.